Ladies and gentlemen, it is probably getting harder to believe by the day that I am still a free-to-play player inside Watcher of Realms, considering this roster that I have, and also the fact that we have a 20x on these champions, so obviously Numera and then Valeria, and to also consider that I managed to pull myself 3 copies of Numera, who we're going to be doing a showcase on today. So I do have my Numera. I'll go ahead and show you here. She is Awakened 2. She's +2, which is going to give her a decent amount of stats and stuff like that. And we're essentially just going to be doing a deep dive into her kit. Now, I will let you know, before we get started, this is actually the first time I'm testing her, but I already have a few key areas that I want to see how she works. Now, I'm also not going to lie. When I first pulled her, I thought she was a marksman. I didn't realize that she was a fighter unit until I went to promote her, and then I was like, oh, that's weird. It wants me to farm fighter promotion scrolls for a marksman, huh? And then I was like, oh, she's actually a marksman. So yeah, pretty crazy stuff there. Kind of dropped the ball, but let's go ahead and take a look at her kit. She is a talent. Each basic attack grants 1 Grimthorn spike. So this is a spike blessed by the Elm and can be launched at enemies to deal damage. This effect can maintain a maximum of 4. When having 4, basic attack has a 50% chance to launch 1 extra Grimthorn spike. So essentially, if she has a full 4 stacks of spikes, every time she has an attack, there's a chance to just throw one at the enemy instead, dealing 400% damage, inflicting 1 stack of poison, which is going to be a poison for 10 seconds, so 5% magic damage, and restoring 40 rage. So she can essentially start to rage cycle once she has, 4 stacks. So already, as you can see, we want to build her with attack speed because we're looking for at least 4 attacks to start triggering this. So let's go ahead and take a look at her basic. Deals 105% damage to 1 enemy. 1 time. This would scale up to 120% damage. Nothing too crazy. She's going to have a passive, Nature's Wrath, so her ultimate, Grimthorn spikes additionally inflict stun. When at least 4 of the Grimthorn spikes hit the same target in a short period, triggers 1 time of Toxic Surge with 30% damage per stack. Toxic Surge is going to consume any poison effects on the enemy, then deal a certain amount of magic damage based on the poison stacks consumed up to 30 stacks. So it's 30% damage per stack. And then she has another passive. Each Grimthorn spike inflicts Grimthorn roots, which is going to deal continuous damage equal to 30% of her attack per second, stacking up to 6 times. Cannot be dispelled on a 6-turn cooldown. And damage reduction. So this is a 30% minus on the damage for a full 6 seconds, which is pretty crazy. So essentially, to put this in perspective, she gets 4 Grimthorn spikes. Then she's going to have a 50% chance per attack to launch a Grimthorn spike, which is going to give more rage, big damage, inflict poison, give true damage through this, as well as damage reduction. Absolutely insane stuff. And you should already start to get a picture of where I want to test her, but we'll go over that more in a second. Her ultimate, finally, immediately gains 2 extra Grimthorn spikes and rapidly launches all spikes to random enemies in range after charging for a short period. Each spike dealing 440% damage and inflicting 1 stack of poison. So she's doing a lot of poisons. She can detonate those poisons. She's doing damage reduction. She's doing stuns. She's doing so much for your account. And then let's go ahead and take a look at the Awakenings. A1, during the ultimate, her damage increases by 25%, and the damage dealt by the Grimthorn spike guarantees a critical hit, which is pretty insane. A2 is attack plus 300. A3, when attacking enemies, ignores 20% of their magic resistance. Each time Nature's Wrath is cast, this effect increases by an extra 5% up to an extra 25% increase. Let's get this straight. That is a 45% ignore on magic resistance. That is ridiculous. Penetration plus 8. And finally, A5 heals her for 20% of the true damage dealt by Grimthorn roots. Definitely kind of an underwhelming A5 there, in my opinion. Let's go ahead and take a look at her artifact first. So for artifacts, I'm using Key of the Forsaken. I didn't really want to min-max every particular point of her kit. This is a decent artifact for her, increasing her HP, helping her survivability. If you're not using this, Wailing Skull is going to be good. Eye of Sin is not going to be good because she's not really doing any sort of AoE. Frigid Flame could be good as well, depending on where you're using her. And then obviously Realm Tear, since she's a ranged fighter, will be very strong as well. As I always say too, when you get down to like the legendary and the epic artifacts, really just put on her what's good. Don't worry too much about which one it is. For the total stats, this is how we're looking. Almost 18k on the attack. We do have 536 on the attack speed. No crit rate, very high crit damage, and then okay rage regen. I do have her built inside Soulbound Arcana, which has the stats looking like this. So we do have an attack speed amulet on her, which I'm not actually sure if we can get a better one. I very much doubt it, but let's go ahead and take a look here. We do actually have one that would give more crit rate and more crit damage, which might be worth swapping out for at some point. Essentially, this gear comes straight from my Init. So Init is who I'm using currently inside Semra to do the damage reduction to make sure that my team can survive a little bit longer. So we're going to be testing and seeing if Numera is a value over replacement for that particular content. Let's go ahead though and let's run her inside the regular old guild boss Nightmare 4 and see what kind of damage she is capable of doing. Now she is an esotericist and she is also a piercer, which means that essentially she can get dual membership with both of those factions and benefit from both of them. So, you know, very, very strong combination there, certainly. Let's go ahead and get Pharisee in here, too. We're not really worried about the other heroes that we have inside this particular team composition because we're really just coming in to see what kind of damage she can do, as well as seeing what sort of uptime we have on the spikes and whatnot. So we're going to get Diao Chan down with her inspiration. We're going to place Numera here, and then we're going to place Pharisee here. And we're going to see what kind of damage she can start to do. So she's doing about 45k per hit right now. As you can see, she does actually have the stacks all the way up as well. So now she's launching those extra Grimthorn spikes, which as you can see are doing big hits for like 175k on top when it pops. And that's going to be true damage, right? Which is insane. You can see, though, that her damage reduction and everything like that isn't continuously up. Like, she is able to start stacking that true damage, but there is definitely a lot of an RNG aspect to it because it is just a 50% chance if she launches those spikes. So you could get certain situations where essentially the spikes just don't happen, right? So we're going to go ahead and ult when the shield pops up here and see what kind of damage she's able to do. So she actually does pop out very decent damage there. We're getting her up over to 7 million almost here already. And she takes the shield down pretty much on her own. I think we're going to see the shield pop here. There it is. The shield goes down, so she is able to pop it solo, which is pretty crazy, right? For a champion or a hero whose ultimate you're able to control. And consider as well, she's already at 10 million. And she doesn't have any crit rate, right? So if we put her inside like my Praetus set, for example, that has crit rate and attack as well as attack speed, she's going to be like even more fantastic, right? But I essentially just wanted to make sure that we're not running her in absolutely cracked out gear and then saying that she's good. So we're going to go ahead and test her inside Semra now and essentially just see what the uptime is going to be on her damage reductions and see if it's worth it for me to actually replace Init inside this team composition. Because if she has very good uptime on these stacks, then I mean it certainly could be a consideration that I have to make. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get Pharisee down. We're going to get Sun Wukong. We have Kagiri. We have Torador who goes up here. Praetus, Constance, Arrogance, we have then Numera's going to go there. Elowin, we're going to place here. And then Tallulah is going to go like right here. So what we're going to do here is we're essentially just going to see what kind of damage and everything like that we're able to get done here. We're going to also look at the overall stats for this and just see where she ranks with that essentially. So you can see we're starting to get some poisons as well as the true damage up here. We're going to go ahead and pop obviously our Torador and our Praetus button there so that we can make sure that we get enough of the attack reduction stacked up here, which it's actually looking like we might struggle to do, oddly enough, but it looks like we'll still get to the 12. And as you can see, she's actually doing okay damage so far as well. We'll go ahead and consume her stacks here, actually, and see if she's able to do some even crazier damage there. 1.9 million so far. I'll tell you what, though, with this same exact gear, when we have when we have Init inside this run instead, he does significantly less damage than that. So she's already crossed over 2.4. At this point, Init would be doing like 1 million, roughly. Like, he doesn't do a whole lot of damage, and that's really just been the weak point with trying to push through Semra, is I just don't have the damage to really do it once I get later on into the phases. So having somebody who's so far been able to keep up that damage reduction as well, like, right, you can see the damage reduction is staying up very consistently. She's constantly refreshing it. She can also potentially be somebody that I just put out and then don't really worry about cycling their alts either, right? So I do have heroes like that in the way of, for example, Torador. I don't really have to cycle his ult unless we're on phase 1 of Semra, where we're able to essentially get some extra stuns out of him by cycling the ult. So you could see there, though, that like for a good few seconds straight, we didn't actually have the damage reduction landing. So if he had done like a big slam or something like that during that period, it would have done significantly more damage to us, which, you know, Init definitely does have a bit of a leg up in that regard, because he essentially ensures that the damage reduction is always up because he's placing it on his A1. So provided that you can get the damage high enough, or not the damage, sorry, the attack speed high enough, he's going to definitely make sure that it's placed out. Now, as you can see by the fact that we're not, you know, min-maxing our rotations and whatnot, we're obviously not too worried about, you know, the actual damage output here, but you can really start to see how much damage she's actually doing here. And we'll go to the end of the poison, so we'll complete a rotation here. Again, not really min-maxing, we're just worried about rotating through her skills. We'll see how much damage she did. We'll go back to Init, we'll switch the gear, and then we'll run Init in here as well, because it'd be very nice to have that direct comparison. I popped Kagiri too late there, but he still got it off, so that's good. It'd be nice to have that direct comparison and just see how much damage Init is able to do as opposed to Numera, so that you guys can get a good idea if, hey, you know, you're trying to run Numera inside, for example, Semra as well. You then can say, hey, well, she's actually a value over replacement for me for Init, because I think a lot of players at this point are either starting to get Init or they have Init, so, you know, it's going to be a very good comparison to make, certainly. I must say as well, I never, so there it is, that's the end of the, poison. So we're going to go ahead and quit the battle, right? I'm going to pull out my iPhone here, and I'm going to make a note. So we're going to go to the stats. We're going to look at Numera, and she did 9.2 million, right? So we're going to keep note of that. We're going to go ahead and hit complete. Then what we're going to do is we're going to come in here. We're going to say fight. We're going to take out Numera. We're going to put in our Init instead, who's going to be way over here somewhere because he doesn't have gear at the moment. There he is. Then what we're going to do is we're just going to simply go ahead. We're going to switch over the gear from her to him, and you can get a very good idea of how they're going to compare directly against each other. Because here's the thing to consider. She doesn't have to bring a lot of damage, and he has a title ring, by the way, so we definitely could put something a little bit better on him. Like if he had a maxed out like Tear of Twilight or something like that, it's certainly going to help, right? But I'm not going to switch it, because she doesn't have huge damage amplification on her artifact either. So let's go ahead. Let's do this. I'm going to do auto fight simply just so that I don't have to go through the placements. I'm going to immediately take it off auto after everybody is placed, and then we'll go from there. There it is. Everybody's down. So we're also going to make sure that we don't alt cycle the other champions as much as possible. Like, you know, no more than we did with the Numera run, essentially, because we want to make sure that we're not getting through this quicker, which will then decrease the damage that she placed. Now, I believe we only did one rotation of it. I don't think we did 2 rotations, so I accidentally cycled Init there, but it's whatever. As you can see, though, Init does a very good job of consistently keeping up the damage reduction there, obviously, right? Nothing on Init, of course, but it looks like we're actually going to struggle to reach the damage reduction cap here, although we did then start to get some procs of the damage reduction, so it is what it is. We're going to go ahead and take a smack here. We're going to put down the healing elf. Now, as I was saying, though, we don't necessarily need a lot of damage to come in from the Numera for her to be a value over replacement, because here's the thing to consider. The missions to get in it are definitely not the easiest, right? I imagine there's going to be a lot of players that are stuck on that. So if you're able to essentially go ahead and, you know, get a option that can do true damage, that can do damage reduction, that can do poisons, right, and do a lot more work on your account, she's going to just stack up so well, because not only Semra, she can also help out with the regular Drake's Chasm, right, and really just help you slam in there and make sure you're getting good damage and whatnot. As we can see, for the overall stats, in it is currently at 1.7 million, which, if I am not mistaken, she was significantly higher than him at this point. Now, Init is one of those heroes that really just does some other stuff in his kit, but he's not necessarily made to be a damage dealer. So you could argue, like, hey, I'm bringing this guy in for support. I'm not worried about the damage. But I would then argue back and say, hey, well, the way you get records and the way you push new content is by finding heroes like that that can be replaced with options that are going to do more damage, right? So, simply put, the TLDR, if we have in it and we can replace him with an option that actually does damage as well, why the hell would we not do it, right? So that's just something to consider. We are going to pop Kagiri there as well. We were doing that on the rotation with Numera. And then, of course, we'll get through the poison phase as well. And the other thing to consider, too, is if you pulled and if you got lucky for the Nastia, who's on the rate up for the Ancient Summoning right now, right? The Lord, she could definitely help out with this poison composition team. And from what Moonton is kind of promoting, they're obviously very much focused around just absolutely blasting through shields, right? So you're looking like Drake's Chasm, you're looking like, you know, Semra, if you're just trying to get, you know, burst damage on him. We're going to go ahead and get through the poison phase here as well, and then see where our boy Init is sitting. So, you know, nothing too crazy here. We're still just going to pop the Kagiri and everything like that. I don't think we really popped too many of the other heroes. So, again, we're going to try and keep it nice and simple, nice and even. Pop the Kagiri now. We'll get the cleanse with the Eloin. Make sure that we don't have the poison stacks on here. I must say as well, so I always play this on mobile, and I don't do, like, audio on it because I'm honestly usually playing it while I'm at work. And I never hear the audio, obviously, so the actual sound design for this boss fight is pretty cool, and I'll give them some credit there. Like, certainly not opposed to it. We'll go ahead and pop Tallulah here as well to make sure that she doesn't, to make sure that we don't get the poisons on. I will do an actual dedicated showcase and guide for this Semra team at some point. So at this point in time, I am not going to be doing a full breakdown or showcase of, you know, the gear and everything like that on all these heroes. There we go. Just for, you know, the sake of it, we'll go ahead and pop in it as well. That's the end of the poison phase. We're going to go ahead and quit the battle. 12k fragments there. Remember the number to beat, and I did mark it down right here. Here's the proof, right? You can't really see it. My phone's green screened out. You'll just have to take my word for it. The number to beat is 9.2 million. Same exact gear in it. Debatably has a better damage amplification artifact. He did 3.8. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is definitive proof that Numera is going to be a value over replacement for Init inside Semra 2. And as a matter of fact, it is to the point where I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch the gear back over to Numera. Because what I'm going to be doing this week, essentially when I do my Semra hits, is I'm going to go ahead and set up a new manual and a new auto so that I can go ahead and use her for the fight instead. So let's go ahead and take a look at the artifact again, right? So she increases her max HP by 7%. Her damage increases by 12% once she gets max stacks. The artifact that we have on the Init increased the damage by like 11% or something like that. So it's very, very similar damage. So she is simply just Init, but better. Now, go ahead and let me know down in the comments, of course, if you use her and where you use her. I'd be very curious to hear about the builds. Keep in mind as well, she's not even close to full booked, right? So her ultimate isn't booked, her passive isn't booked, right? We could get significantly more damage out of her. And then obviously if we actually crit capped her, we could get significantly more damage out of her that way as well, right? So I'll go to the gear here real quick, and I'll show you, like, if I were to put her in my Praetus build, what kind of build she'd be working with. So something like this, slightly less attack speed, but way more crit damage, a little bit less, or sorry, crit rate, a little bit less crit damage, but that's perfectly fine. And then more attack that would get her up over 20k as well. Granted, she'd have no rage regen, but, you know, it is what it is. Now, as I always do, we're going to go through the sets and the gear that I would recommend you use her in. So for the left-hand side, I would recommend you use her in Wicked Vengeance. Warlord, Calamity, Annihilating Might, and Whirlwind. These are going to be the left side gear pieces that you're looking to use on Numera. Basically, just your regular DPS pieces is what you're looking for. Right-hand side, you're looking for Soulbound Arcana. I think is going to be a very good option for her. Infernal Roar could be very strong as well because she is going to be attacking a lot. Just the one thing to consider is that, you know, it doesn't actually amplify her spikes when they get thrown, I don't believe. So Infernal Roar might actually be a better option for best in slot gearing though when it comes to this hero, because the other thing to consider as well is that when you have her full spikes is when she's doing her damage reductions, and when you activate her ultimate, which would power up your Soulbound Arcana, she's going to remove those spikes. So if you're simply just looking for damage reduction to be out there as much as possible, having her throw those spikes, you're not actually going to want to pop her ultimate. So essentially, I did this because this was the init gear that I had, and I wanted a direct comparison between the two to see the damage. Ageless Wrath is going to be good as well. Obviously, Cataclysm is going to be very solid. Morale could be good too. If you're simply just building her for the damage reduction, Morale is going to be very strong to help boost up everybody else on your team. And then, you know, for tier 1, it kind of just is what it is. Throw her inside whatever gear you might have. Now, this is an absolutely badass looking hero inside the game, right? She is sensational, in my opinion. That being said, let's go ahead and give her some ratings as well. So for Drakes, I'm going to give her a 5. Faction Trials, an easy 5 as well. Titanic, she's definitely getting a 5. Immortal Codex, she could be very good. You're really just looking for like damage reduction pretty much anywhere inside the game, right? So I think a 5 there is perfectly fair. Void Rift, also very good, having a fighter that can do that, right? Arena single target DPS, I think is going to be a 4. She's not really a specialist for it, I don't think. She is a fighter that can do decent damage and true damage. So actually, you know what? With the true damage especially, she's probably going to go up to a 5. And she's doing huge damage on the launch of her spikes. Artifact Material Raid, probably about a 4. Tide, I'm going to give her a 4. XP Raid, a 4. She's not AoE. Guild Wars doing true damage is going to be very strong, I think. Gear Raid 3, probably like a 3. She's not really a specialist for that, in my opinion, because everything's airborne. She doesn't really hit airborne, right? So she could just be there as a tank. Gold Raid 4. Gear Dungeon 1, I'm going to give her a 4. Gear Dungeon 2, also probably a 4. Gear Raid 1, I'm going to give her a 3, just because she doesn't really do any AoE. Gear Raid 2, definitely going to give her a 5, right? Having her down, she could do good numbers. She's going to get a 1 in anti-air, and she's going to get like a 3 inside AoE. So those are going to be my ratings. And, you know, that's the sets I would use on her. That's where I would use her, all those sorts of good things. Make sure to go ahead and book her out if you're going to get a lot of use out of her, right? I think she's absolutely fantastic. The continuous damage as well as just the hard CC and everything like that that's coming in is, you know, just insane, right, from her kit. So that being said, though, definitely let me know down below if you guys are using her and what you think of her so far. As always, there is a Discord link down below as well. Channel memberships are live too if you want to get in and support that. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.